What is chest voice and what is head voice is a question that I get very often, and I finally collected all of the information that you need to know to explain head voice and chest voice. So this shorts video will explain like a brief introduction of what they are, but in this video I'm going to be telling you guys about how you can identify each and some examples of songs that use both head voice and chest voice. So keep watching till the end if you want to know that. So with the information given in that shorts video, I'm going to be elaborating off of that. So how do you know when you're using chest voice? Well, your sound is going to be very resonant and full of power. But that's a very general explanation, and you sometimes can't even tell if something does sound powerful or not. So some other ways to tell if you're using chest voice or not is to actually just sing and put your hand on your chest just like this, and if it's ringing or slightly, I don't know, vibrating almost, buzzing in a slight way, it's not going to be like crazy vibrating, but if it does, if you can feel that, then it's definitely chest voice. Like right now as I'm talking, you can still hear it if you put your hand just like this. So try singing in chest voice, or what you think of is chest voice, and if that's kind of like buzzing, ringing, then it is definitely chest voice. If not, then you're probably using head voice or mixed voice, which we will talk about later on in the video. Now, it's probably a little bit weird to have your hand on your chest like this while you're singing the entire time. Obviously, occasionally you can go back and forth, but the entire time might be a little bit odd. So what you can do is get used to the feeling of chest voice, because when you're starting to use it often, you're going to definitely get used to it and get familiar with what each sound like. And if you're a beginner, this might be a little bit more difficult to tell. But as you get used to singing, you'll definitely be able to identify which is which without having to do this hack here or this trick, and you'll be able to notice what you're using at any time. So naturally, the next question goes to, how do you know if you're using head voice? So head voice is definitely going to sound a lot lighter, softer, and a little bit more breathy, and this is kind of in the contrast to chest voice, right? So it's not going to have a powerful sound, and it's not going to sound full of resonance and of solid sound. It's going to sound a little bit incomplete if that makes sense. And a lot of beginner singers are actually used to only singing in head voice, and they don't even notice that until they're told that they're only using head voice. So if this is you, quickly change this back. I'll explain it later in the video. But anyway, another way to tell if you're using head voice is you feel the vibrations almost in your head. So it's kind of easy because chest voice, chest, head voice, head. And this one is a little bit harder to tell because it's, you can't feel it in your head. You can't touch your head and notice the vibrations. But what you're going to do is almost feel slightly dizzy, slightly lightheaded after singing too much in head voice. And this is actually the reason why beginner singers have trouble singing long term or like a longer period of time, because they're continuously using your head voice. And with that being said, not every beginner singer uses head voice. Some just naturally begin with chest voice, and that is definitely good for them. However, some singers do only begin in head voice. So that is how to tell if you feel the vibrations in your head, and you'll definitely notice it. It's not impossible, but it is a little bit more difficult to tell with head voice. And with head voice, there is another way to tell. So try singing a high note that is out of your range, and if it sounds lighter and softer, then it's probably going to be in head voice. And this is also probably going to have to be a note that is way out of your range, because you can almost hit it without any strain. And a lot of singers are like, oh my god, wait, I just hit that note. Well, it's probably in head voice if it isn't within your range. And with this being said, it's also nice to know what your range is so that you can hit a note that's slightly out of it. And there's so many easy ways to tell what your range is. Just watch a YouTube video where it essentially just plays out all the notes, and all you have to do is sing it and see if you can follow. And if you can't, that's where your max high note is essentially. So that's how to tell chest voice and head voice apart. It's not the easiest thing in the world, however, it's not the hardest thing either. And I think once you get used to it, you really do get used to using each, and you can control it a lot better as to whether you want to use head voice in a certain part of a song or head voice. And the challenging part for intermediate to almost professional singers is going back and forth between chest voice and head voice and making that really natural for yourself, because anyone can hit a note in chest voice or head voice. The challenging part is really going back and forth and making that sound very seamless. Now next is mixed voice, and this one is a challenge. I know I've been saying that throughout the entire video, but this one surely is the hardest of all, because it is simply a mix between chest voice and head voice. So if you think you're not using either, it's safe to say that it's mixed voice, but at the same time, I can't guarantee that for you. The thing is, none of these are clearly defined, and you kind of have to identify for yourself whether it's chest voice or head voice or mixed voice. Like one person could say, oh, that's head voice, while another person could say, no, that's mixed voice. So it is quite a challenge to tell, but I would personally say that mixed voice is closer to head voice because you're still using some of that high, almost controlling with your head kind of situation because you're not fully producing it through your chest. So just use that hack, hand on your chest, because I think that is the easiest way to tell, and you definitely want to continuously do that and make sure that you're using chest voice, especially if you have a habit of going back to head voice. Now this one is probably most applicable to you if you are already familiar with these terms and you just want to know whether you should use head voice or not for your audition, or vice versa. But if you're a beginner singer and you're not completely used to this, you're still trying to get a hang of what each sounds like, then definitely go with a fully chest voice song. So that means there is no spot in the song where you're using head voice and you have to go back to chest voice, head voice, vice versa, because that is going to be difficult for you. If you do want to challenge yourself and you think you're a little bit more advanced than that, then definitely go for it, because it is really, really impressive when someone goes back from head voice to chest voice. Fun fact, did you know that yodeling is kind of how that works? You go back from head voice. Not exactly saying you should use that for your auditions because it's not very applicable to K-pop in itself, but just wanted to add that little fact. But back to if you're an advanced singer, then definitely go with a song that is mainly chest voice, but sometimes there are head voice highlights in it. So some parts of the song are going to have head voice. I mean, you can still use the entirely chest voice, but if you want to challenge yourself, then definitely go with that. Just one thing to know, whether you're a beginner or an intermediate or an advanced, just never go with a fully head voice or a fully mixed voice song. Why? Because you may sound very uncontrolled, like your vocals sound very uncontrolled, and you'll sound very breathy, lack of power. All of these things you want to definitely avoid for your audition. You want to sound very controlled and confident within yourself, and with head voice it is quite difficult to achieve that, and it may have the impression of sounding a little bit lackluster, if that makes sense. And in many, many cases it sounds extremely nasally, so firstly that's not the correct way to sing, and secondly it's gonna have a lot of, there's a perfect word in this in Korean, hobudo, which means that you'll either really, really like it or you won't like it a lot. Like mint chocolate is a hobudo because some people really like it but some people really hate it. And with a nasal voice, a lot of people tend to hate it, so definitely avoid that. Now if you're like, oh my god, I've been using head voice for this entire time, how do I stop? Don't worry, because I got you. So how do you stop using head voice is the question here. And when you're so used to head voice, it can be difficult to convert back. However, it's not impossible. So here's how. So firstly, you're going to almost mentally unlock your chest voice rather than physically. Again, try that hack. I've been repeating this over and over again, but that's really the start to using head voice, or using chest voice again, sorry, it's like confusing me back and forth. But you really have to mentally think of stop using your head and fully rely on your chest. And if it does help, try talking and then singing, because when you're talking you're probably using chest voice unknowingly and you want to almost transition to that smoothly. And because you're already used to using your chest voice when you're talking, it's not going to be impossible. If you're using head voice while talking, well, that's another problem. Just mentally imagine your sound coming from the core of your body rather than your head. You want to really rely on this stomach area part if you really want to say just the core. When you're starting out, definitely use a louder voice than you usually sing in, because that's going to force the chest voice to come out, and sing in a lower range that's more comfortable to you. Don't start off with a higher note if you are singing with chest voice, because that'll be more difficult. Now we're going to look at some real life examples that are used in songs of chest voice and head voice. So I prepared some examples and you guys are gonna have to play the song on your own because I don't want to get copyrighted. So the very first song is I'll Be There by Stacy. And if you go to the chorus, they immediately start using head voice, whereas in the pre-chorus and before that they used chest voice. So because of this, the notes sound extremely fragile, extremely soft, and it's not very powerful in a sense. It's supposed to sound really weak, and that's the stylistic technique that they are using because it matches the very fragile sounding song, very soft ballad type of song. If I were to put my own opinions on it, I would say that it's more of a head voice and mixed voice going back and forth, because it's not entirely in head voice, but there is no spot of chest voice in the chorus at least. Okay, and then the next part is My House by 2 PM, and I've been listening to this song non-stop because I'm watching Boys Planet. unrelated. But anyway, go to the timestamp that's 54 seconds, and in there you'll be able to find one note that's in head voice. So it's extremely challenging to notice at first, but once you get used to it, you'll never be able to stop thinking whether this is in chest voice or head voice. Honestly, just play a game for yourself. Play a favorite song of yours and identify which notes are in which voice technique. Okay, so anyway, in this song, My House, you'll be able to find one part, and the lyric is 10. So like, 10분 뒤 저 앞에서 너를 기다리고 있을게. So as you'll kind of be able to tell, 10 and ki is the head voice part. Sorry, that's 2 notes. But otherwise, the rest is in chest voice. And why is this the case? Because the notes for ship and ki is a lot more higher than the others, so they use head voice to help support that. And of course, it's going to be more difficult when you're live. I guess I never mentioned this, but for live singing, maintaining a transition between chest voice and head voice is going to be extremely difficult. And another example is Aju Nice by 17, and this one is also an example of slightly using head voice in certain parts. So I'm going to put a quiz for you guys, and you guys guess which part of this lyric is in head voice and which is in chest voice. I mean, majority of it is going to be in chest voice, so just identify the head voice parts. 오늘 날씬 너를 많이 닮아 너에게 가는 길이 꽃길이 되고 보일 듯 말 듯한 네만 보인다면. So guess and let me know your thoughts in the comments. I guess that's the question of the day today. So thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!